So, here today we have Mr. Scott. Scott has been in the Brandon area for more than 15 years?
18.
18 years.
This summer will actually be 19.
So, the man has been in it for quite a while. So, Scott, I gotta ask you, man, how in the world have you stayed in business as a comic book store for 18 plus years?
That's a good question. Sometimes I feel like I'm just faking it until I make it. I mean, I never went to school for business or anything. I just know comics, and I know customer service, so I like to think I'm good at both.
Nice. So, when you decided to open this, was there like a aha moment, or was it how did that happen?
Well, I worked at Brandon Comics, which was the comic book store previously to my store being open.
Okay.
That's the comic book store that I shopped at for years. That's where I got my comic book roots. Oh. And I worked there for about a year after high school, and the owner, he was getting older, he wanted to retire, close up shop, and there was another comic book store in town that I didn't want to shop at.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of inspired me to open my own store, which was back in 1999, which was, if you know anything about comic books, was kind of the dead zone of the industry. Probably not the best time to open a comic book store, but I was a young, dumb 20-year-old, and I figured, what the heck, I want to sell comics.
I mean, kind of, when you think about it, if it was the dead zone, the only place you had to go from there was up.
That's one way of looking at it. That's the positive spin. So maybe it was the correct time to open a comic book store.
And also, really interesting about that is you opened in 1999. In 2000, that was the first X-Men that came out.
Yep.
So that must have helped immensely.
Oh, yeah. And then Spider-Man after that, and then
2002, right?
I believe 2002 was the first Spider-Man movie, and then obviously in 2007, Marvel started the cinematic universe, and then it was just all gravy after that. I mean, comic books are back in a big way in the view of pop culture.
For sure. So let's kind of take this back to the childhood days. What was Scott like in school? Were you like the guy that was sitting off reading a comic book? Like, how did that play out?
Well, back in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of uncool to be a comic book fan, right?
Definitely.
Now it's like being a comic book fan, like I said, geek culture is totally in.
Totally.
So back then, you couldn't exactly be proud of being a geek like you can now. Now you have people pretending to be geeks.
Yeah. They walk around with the glasses, or
and then they tell you they're a comic fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of funny how that whole thing has changed.
Just the role reversal has happened.
Right.
Like what was out is now in. And
I mean, I got into comics in 1989. It was pretty much the Tim Burton Batman movie with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton, and it was...
Which one was that? The first Batman movie that came
correct.
out? Okay.
Yeah. The one with Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And then from there you were just like, wow, this right here is...
Yeah, I mean, I originally got into comics a little bit before that through the Transformers comics.
Okay.
When the cartoon in the 80s ended.
My uncle was a fan there.
Who wasn't? If you grew up in the 80s,
right.
You loved Transformers. And when the cartoon ended, I realized that there was comic books published by Marvel, and I wanted to continue, being entertained by Transformers, so I got into the comic that way. And then once that Batman movie came out, and then soon after that, the X-Men cartoon in the early 90s, and then that's what really got me deep into the comic book mythology, because I just wanted to know more about it.
Were you surprised of kind of that change of, you saw like a certain amount in the animated versions of it, but then to go to the comic side and to see all of the lore and connection that the universes had to it?
Yeah, the comic books were so much deeper in that mythology than the cartoons ever could be. Even the Transformers cartoon didn't go as deep into the characters, and to me, as a 10-year-old kid, I just thought that was awesome, and there was so much more weight to the comics, because they killed off Transformers in the comics, whereas in the cartoon, they always
kept
kind of
making
safe.
it, kind of remaking it and changing it to the different styles as the technology increased and whatnot?
As far as the comics go,
Just the animated, really. I mean, I remember seeing 3 or 4 different versions of Transformers from, I believe, 1999. I remember there was the most classical
Beast Wars
one,
and
right?
everything, yeah.
And then I think in 2003 or 4 they relaunched and they have this newer one.
I'm a fan of the Gen 1 stuff, which was the 80s.
Same
you
here,
go
brother.
back and watch it now, it's so cheesy, but there's something still great about it.
I love the, I don't know, I like kind of that rustic antique look of
Right.
those cartoons from
For
there.
sure.
So you're coming up on comics a little bit. Would you say that comics is sort of how you kind of found your culture or friends and things like that, or?
Yeah. Everybody I've ever met in my adult life is through comic books.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's where I have made friendships, and that's where anybody that comes in looking for comics, we have that basic thing in common, and it goes from there. We start talking about Star Wars, we start talking about movies, we start talking about anything, and
Which is so crazy how, like, you meet somebody who has this one interest, but that interest is so deep, and you can just really, like,
springboard off of it to
Yes.
find real friendship. Yeah.
Awesome. So, does your love of comics, is this strictly based in the Marvel DC? Does this expand to, like, anime or other kind of things?
I've never really been into the Japanese animation. Yeah, I mean, comic books have just really been my thing. I'm not really too much into the action figures. I mean, comic books and movies are it, and music, of course.
Yeah, because there's some badass music.
Yeah, right.
So, you're developing friendships through comics, and then at what age do you actually start working for the comic book store that you first worked for?
I started working at Brandon Comics Shop right after high school, so I was 18.
Okay.
And I worked there until I was 19, and then I opened this store right after I turned 20 years old.
Right after 20. Okay, so you had about 2 years of experience. Now, were you a person that as you were coming up in high school, was it ever a thing like, hey, get out from behind the comics and go do something? Like, how was that?
I mean, there was other options, of course, if I didn't sell comics. I'm glad it turned out the way it did, but, I had other avenues, like possibly I wanted to go into television productions.
Okay.
And then I was in ROTC in high school, so the military was an option. That would be totally different lifestyle
Yes.
than I'm living now.
Wow.
So I'm glad this worked out.
I mean, you're talking about you started working at 18 and then you opened your own.
Right. I mean, all through high school, the owner of Brandon Comics Shop, I just begged him every week, every Wednesday I went in to pick up my new comics. I was like, hey, you want to give me a job? Hey, you want to give me a job? My only ambition was to work at the comic book store. I never actually wanted to open the comic book store.
Hot dog. So, did he end up saying, you know what, I'll hire you before the Army situation played out, the ROTC situation?
Yeah. I mean, and then, of course, when you're 19, 20 years old, you're not sure what you want to do.
Right,
I was
right.
going to the local college for a semester of school and working at the comic shop, and I was actually a substitute teacher.
Wow.
Also,
For what subject?
Anything that they called me for. I would fill in for any Hillsborough County teacher.
That kind of takes some guts right there, huh? I mean...
Yeah, especially right after high school, being 19 years old, going into substituting high school again, where the kids there are 17, 18.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a different situation.
I mean, I can imagine that you probably had did you ever have any of the classroom girls who were like, hey, substitute?
Yeah, and I was like, hey girls, where were you when I was in high school?
It's like, you want to wait just till it's illegal for that. So, you're in college and you're doing your thing, you get hired onto the comic book shop, and you decide, okay, awesome, I'm hired here. Did you kind of just put the Army deal or the ROTC? Did you have a particular branch you were going to be going into?
Either Air Force or Army.
Air Force or Army?
Yeah. But I never really pulled the trigger on it because I did get the job at the comic book store, and then I was trying college there for a while, so I was kind of just trying things out.
Did you go to college locally here in the Brandon area?
Yeah, the HCC campus.
HCC? Oh, awesome, the Brandon campus. And so, were you able to ever fester that comic book, add the comic book love and culture, and kind of start something up in the HCC area?
No. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really after high school, I had enough of school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was just doing HCC bare minimum, you know.
Was that something you did because it was like a requirement from
Yeah, I mean,
parents and things like that?
yeah, you know, back then people just thought going to college was the thing to do. Now,
was the only option.
yeah,
right?
I mean, I believe experience is more valued than education.
Right, like what can you actually accomplish in your industry?
Right.
What's your skill set now?
If someone had worked in the industry for 5 years versus going to college to learn something for 5 years, I would take the experience over the education.
Absolutely.
Because the experience is the education.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, you can sit here and tell me the theory of like, how do I put my comics and get them to sell? Or you can get them onto Craigslist and eBay and Amazon and sell me 10 comic books a day. Or
Which
a
all
week.
of that didn't exist back in 1998.
Right. It sure did.
No.
Okay, so
Those
now...
are the dark ages, man. How about this? The first 2 years of my business, I didn't even have a computer in the store. I did all the ordering by fax and by
my
phone
God.
calls. That's totally an alien concept now. I could not run this business without a computer and the internet.
What was your customer base like? How many people did you have on average?
I mean, when I opened, I really didn't have anything. I mean, I opened the store on a small inheritance from my grandmother who had recently passed away. So it was such a small budget that I had to work with. I really had nothing, and so I had to rely on the new comics that came out every Wednesday and then build the fan base from there.
So let's rewind, because that was really interesting. So you said that you got a small inheritance. Now, were you and your grandmother, were y'all close like that?
Of course, yeah.
Awesome.
I love my grandmother.
Did she talk with you about comics and about your kind of...
I mean, she knew I was into comics. She had passed away, of course, before I ever even thought about opening a comic book store.
Right.
But that is, I would say, almost 100% the reason why this store is still here, because I used my grandmother's money and I couldn't fail her.
That's amazing. So it was like, okay, this is it. This is what she left me, essentially. Oh, there?
Let me know if I can help you. I'm just doing a small interview right here.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
Totally good. So that was really your push and your motivation to be like, okay, I have to make this. Like, what was like your first instance where you were like, man, I'm just not sure. Like, I opened at a dark age and it's slow right now. Like, I mean, going to HCC, you must have been like, wow, it's tight right now.
Yeah, well, they say the first 2 to 3 years, if you make it past that, then you've made it in business. Yeah, it was pretty difficult, man. I wasn't just, selling comics. I was delivering chicken wings. I worked at Best Buy. I was still a substitute teacher. I did anything to pay the bills because the comic books were not paying the bills at first. And, somehow, some way, you just got to make it, I told myself from the beginning that the cops would have to drag me out of here in handcuffs to make me give up the store, And, I mean, it's the most... common advice, but I mean that's what it is you just don't.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Had a little bit of cut off, but we're back into it. So you had 3 jobs you were doing. Now the substitute teacher thing, was that something that you just saw somewhere and you were like, oh, this is something that I can do?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that was another option, that I was gonna be a teacher at one point. Like I said, when you're a kid, you don't know what you're trying to find yourself,
Right.
So, yeah, it was at the time. I don't think Hillsborough County treats this the same way anymore. But all it took was going to a 2-week class and learning how to be a substitute teacher, and then you got. Yeah, I know. Wow. At the time, they would put anybody. Were you all set, man, or still going?
Oh yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the 2-week class is all it took. And honestly, I wish they kind of would still give that opportunity to kids, because I believe when you graduate high school, I think everybody should become a substitute teacher, just so you can see what you put your teachers through.
Right.
You get a better understanding of, like, how you were.
A little appreciation, then
Right.
maybe you come back and visit your teachers
Because
a little more.
it's always the same thing. It's like, oh, our teacher lets us go to the bathroom anytime we want. It's like, kid, no, they don't. I was pulling the same line a year ago,
Man, okay, so that was a really cool experience. So now, do you think that doing all those other jobs, did those, I mean, I know financially they contributed to being able to have the store open. Do you think that they added to your skills and how you were able to run the shop?
I believe so. I mean, especially with the substitute teaching job. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
I was just doing an interview on camera, so if you need anything, just let me know. It's right
Yeah,
here.
you're all good.
But yeah, feel free to shop around. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, I know what I'm getting. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it easy. What you looking at?
It's an anniversary gift.
Ah, perfect.
Ooh.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Total this afternoon, $69.54. Check there, please.
Yeah, it's 4 years. Figure
Girlfriend or wife?
fiance.
Ah, okay.
Halfway between.
Congratulations.
Only a matter of time now.
Would you like a bag to carry him in today?
Do you have something that's not see-through?
I mean,
Yeah,
This
maybe
okay?
just double bag that maybe.
sure.
It's pretty cool right there.
Okay.
My girlfriend, she got me a set of Dragon Balls for our anniversary.
Nice.
So it was cool.
You're obviously more into the anime then.
I'm pretty good into both of them. Like I watch both of them like really hardcore. Not so much like my cousin, he has comics, so when we're together, he'll put me on the comics, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. But then I can never find like a shop that I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta get this one. I don't know where to
Found it,
start.
right?
I know, right?
Well, new comics come out every Wednesday, so the new wall is always a good place to start.
And that's like
That's-
starting at a base origin story.
Well, I mean, part ones to new storylines come out all the time. So, I mean, I got a Marvel previews there I can hook you up with too. Marvel's about to do a fresh new start take on their characters, so that would be like the ground floor that you could get on.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the heck did we leave off at?
Let's see. We were talking about did my job experience
Add
to
to
the comic book store.
Right. And you said, of course.
I think with the substitute teaching, it did add because, like I said, that was a big responsibility. So there was that, and also I believe I told you I worked at Best Buy,
Right.
and that's where I got a lot of my customer service abilities too, because I had to deal with customers, and I was a cash register guy. I had to find certain products for people, so that definitely helped also.
As far as like how to organize it in the system, how to pull it up.
And then the chicken wing delivery job was kind of fun because I would have to answer calls and take orders, so that helps with taking orders and, and answering customers' questions.
Now, when you were getting these jobs, were they jobs that you specifically got? You were like, okay, I want to get this from it, and that from it, and that from it.
No, I was trying to get money to pay the bills here. That's what I was trying to do. I would take any job.
Yeah, on that, and you really did. You took 3 of them,
Right.
So, okay, so you open up and you're going through business, and those first couple of years, you're just grinding it out with your other 3 jobs to help sustain everything.
Right.
And then that puts you at 2002, which at this point, X-Men came out a year after you opened your own. 2 years later, the first Spider-Man come out. So now the comic book universe is starting to gain some steam. It's like, oh, a cool thing here. Star Wars is obviously still a thing that you can be pretty good at as far as
because
sales.
the prequels were coming out back then, so that helped.
Okay, so those things are set. Now, at this point, that's also when the internet came into play. So when did your business go from here and you start to see a trajectory scaling upward?
I really still don't sell a lot online. Like I know a lot of stores sell on eBay, but I'm pretty much just concentrate on sales in the store. I mean, ever since social media has hit it big, you're able to advertise to more the direct customer that you want to.
Right.
With Facebook, you can directly target the
Yep.
people that are interested in your events and your products.
So, would you say, paraphrasing here, of course, that the internet itself as a whole didn't really change things, but the Facebook and the ability to advertise on that is what really, not skyrocket, but it definitely made it easier and more precise to be able to advertise and spend those dollars?
Yeah, I'd rather advertise on Facebook and Instagram than any other form of advertisement. You know, before that, I took out advertisements like in, back then it was called the Tampa Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the Tampa Times now.
I think so, yeah. Or Tampa Bay Times.
And I took out, you know, a quarter-page ad in the Friday Extra one time.
Which was what, like $100 over a 12-month period?
No, it was really expensive for a quarter-page ad. I can't remember exactly. It was hundreds of dollars just for one Friday.
Oh,
and I did that to advertise our free comic book day event.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you don't know how many people are actually responding to it.
Right.
With the Facebook targeting, you can see exactly who's seeing it and how many people are seeing it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely more effective.
Man. So when did you decide to take that? Because, so from me doing basic math, so you finished school, you started the shop in 1999, and you were 22 at that time. 20 at the time. So you were 20 in 99, 18 years later, that puts you around 38?
Yeah, that's the math.
So
I don't know how I got here, but I stopped aging at 27. But
let's see, 27?
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't place you anywhere past 26.
I'll take it.
So, so when Facebook started to be a thing, you were 20.
Give me 1 second.
Absolutely.
Hey man, I'm just doing a short interview here.
No, that's fine. I didn't want to interrupt.
Was there anything you were looking for?
I was just checking my box.
What was your last name?
Day?
Okay. Is the battery still good?
Let's see now. So, talking about Facebook a little bit. Oh yeah. So, you were about 26 at the time when, about 26ish.
What? When Iron Man came out?
When you started using like Facebook and Instagram, when did you start using those as part of your advertising strategy?
Well, no, Facebook back then, I think at that point was still like a college campus thing, right?
Right.
I don't think
right.
Facebook went public until probably 2009 or 2010.
Yeah, and then their advertising didn't really start catching on until
really
like
pick
11,
up.
12, huh?
Yeah, I want to say the Facebook targeting started around that time.
Mm-hmm. So so at 02, those movies come out. Now, MySpace was a little bit of a thing. Did you use MySpace at all?
I did, but MySpace wasn't exactly as user-friendly as Facebook.
Yeah.
Like with MySpace, I did have a Read More Comics page,
Mm-hmm.
but were you ever on MySpace?
Yeah.
It wasn't the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you had to, it wasn't like a business address.
It was almost strictly like just a...
And you could post just very limited things, and you
Mm-hmm.
only had so many pictures you could post.
Yeah.
MySpace was very primitive, but it definitely led the way for Facebook.
Yeah. Man, those days of walls and the songs in the background people played.
Yeah.
What was your song that you had on your background?
Oh, jeez, I don't even remember. You could look it up, but I don't even have my password for MySpace anymore. It's still out
Same
there.
here.
It's still out there.
So, all right. So, as you're making the progress in it, was there ever a point where you noticed that things went from sort of a steady to be like a sharp upward movement?
It was kind of funny because, once again, going back to the first Iron Man movie, I believe that came out in, 08, right? Somewhere of 08?
I believe so, yeah. Because it just celebrated its 10-year anniversary.
So there was an upswing in comics then because no one knew who Iron Man was.
Right.
Of course, he was like a B, maybe even C-lister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, Robert Downey Jr. has made Iron Man an A-lister. So I remember when that first came out, people were like, oh, I need to know more about Iron Man. So that definitely brought people into the comic book store.
Nice.
But then, a year later in 09, between 09 and 10, there was the
Hulk movie?
Well, no, there was the recession.
Yes.
A lot of, like, the housing market crash, and a lot of people didn't have that disposable income anymore. Luckily, that bounced back around 2012. So then that's when when the targeting started on Facebook.
Which, I gotta figure out, how in the world did you, with the comic book store, survive through the recession? Were you keeping on with the other jobs, or?
No, I quit my other jobs probably I stopped doing the chicken wings in 2001, and I stopped doing Best Buy in 2001. I think I took the substitute teaching to 2002, but then I have ever since 2002, 2003, I've been doing the comic book thing full time.
Wow.
With the recession in 09, that's when I started coming up with these crazy ideas, like for Free Comic Book Day, just to blow things out.
Okay.
Every year on Free Comic Book Day, we sell every retail comic for $1, and we have tons of free comics. And then we came up with our New Year's Eve sale, which at midnight on New Year's Eve, everything's 50% off. And to this day, we still do that, but those events and those sales sprung out of the recession because I needed to move product.
I hear you. So you're like, man, it's bad right now. Everybody's hurting. How can I keep it coming in and not just be kind of sitting on inventory?
Right.
And that was your play.
I was drowning in comics there for a little bit. I still am. I'm probably going to die under a pile of comics one day.
But you made it work to where it was not like suffocating you. You made it to where it actually still had some life to it.
Yeah, comics gotta come in, comics gotta go out.
Yeah, very true. So then things start to come back around 11, 12-ish, and at the same time, that's when targeting comes. So you were saying, is that when things really, like, your things that you were doing as the recession hit kind of kept the breath going, but in 11, 12, that's when you really saw it from here, and it just...
comic books have been on the steady upswing now. Then there's a whole speculation market now too, where people are interested in buying first appearances. I mean, it's a whole nother level of collecting.
Oh, when did Comic Con become a thing?
Which Comic Con? You mean San Diego?
Right.
San Diego Comic Con has been around since the 70s.
Since the 70s?
I mean, that's become more of a pop culture convention instead of just a comic book convention. It's more about the movies now.
Yeah.
I guess the conventions had to roll with the punches too. MegaCon in Orlando, that's the biggest convention in Florida, I would say. At least Central Florida for sure. And 10 plus years ago, it was more about the anime, and then it became about media guests. But now I feel like MegaCon's becoming more of a comic book convention. Like if you look at the guests for this year's MegaCon, I mean, who's not going to be there? All the top writers, all the top artists. I feel like MegaCon's really come back.
So now that's kind of like the hub spot to gather in. So those events, and do you think they did that because they're seeing like, man, this is really where the attention's at? Like, let's give people...
For sure. And that's, I mean... that's another gateway drug, as I call it, too, you know, because people will go to MegaCon to meet these media guests like TV and movie stars.
Right.
But then there's also the opportunity, they see comics there, and that is a way for them to get into comics.
And at these events, do they have it to where like people can go around, they can kind of check out a comic for free if they want to? Like...
there's promotional items at the conventions, and then there's cheap boxes that retailers have. So it's definitely encouraging for people to get into the comic book genre.
Awesome. And so at this point, you've been in it for 18 years.
This August will be 19 years.
19 years this August. So, continuing on from this point, what is sort of the plan, or I mean, are there any?
Sorry, were you all set, man?
No, they were just
you're just going.
They're just listening.
Is there anything coming for the future that you plan on trying or changing, or any platforms you're looking at to maybe swing things in another way?
I mean, yeah. Like I said, you got to roll with the punches, of course. As of right now, things are really steady, so I'm a big fan. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely.
Until something really
demands it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a nosedive, so I mean, I must be doing something right.
Yeah,
so
man,
I'm gonna
for
keep
sure.
going with it.
Yeah, I was looking at your Facebook, and that thing has 3,500 plus, and
yeah, we got a good following for sure.
Yeah, man. But I did notice that you haven't posted since like last July.
For what?
For it was the Read More Comics page on Facebook.
No.
No?
I post every single Wednesday.
Really?
That new stuff wall back there, I always take a picture of it. I say, new stuff wall, fully stocked, well organized. For New Comic Wednesday, where are you on Wednesday? You should be here. That's every Wednesday. And then every once in a while I'll post, like if a hot new title comes out, I'll post the image of the cover and then also a description of the comic.
Okay.
So yeah, take a look at that again.
Yeah, you'll have to show me that.
I'm pretty active on the Read More Comics Facebook.
Awesome. Well, shoot. So, ending this off, I like to, and this might be something that might be changed up in the future, but one question that you would like to ask any person that may view this in the future, and they'll be able to come back and
Well,
give
like
this
a
an
time
answer.
capsule?
Time capsule, like what was, I don't know, you might be like, hey, what was your gateway comic? What, anything you want that you want feedback on.
Well, I'd ask, are you still reading physical comics or have you gone digital? Digital is not necessarily the enemy. I don't want to make it sound negative for digital comics. I feel like digital comics are sort of the newsstand of the 21st century because we don't really have newsstands anymore. You know how you used to be able to go to 7-Eleven and there'd be a comic rack there, right? That's not really in the public view anymore. But most anybody has an iPhone or an iPad or some kind of mobile device, and there are apps like Comixology and other downloadable content. Marvel even has stuff where you can download. It's not really downloading; it's a subscription service where you're able to read comics every week that they come out. And so, if that's in the public eye, I feel like that can also transition to buying physical comics.
Definitely. So you're a fan of it?
I mean, I obviously am more of a fan of the physical comics, but the digital comics can lead to physical comics. There's such thing as screen fatigue, where everybody stares at a computer screen.
I get it at least once a day.
Right. Your eyes just get tired of looking at an iPhone or your computer screen. So at nighttime, before you go to bed, I feel like you want to read a physical book, it's easier on the eyes.
Just sitting under a nice lamp and just flipping through it, and maybe a laugh and chuckle here and there.
And with comic books, it's an art form too. So there's something about actually owning a piece of art. You can't show your collection of digital comics. Right. That's not impressive, right?
Or you're like, oh no, my terabyte went out. There goes all my comics.
Right. So if anybody's watching this 20 years from now, I'm asking you, are you still reading physical comics?
I like it. Now, I'm going to be having interviews with future people, and I believe my next interview is with a person in the counseling industry where they actually counsel people, alcohol issues or things like that. What's a question that you would like me to ask that person?
Dealing with counseling?
Right.
So not comic book related.
No?
How do you break the cycle of negativity, I guess, right? I mean, that's the big question. That's why people have counseling, because they get stuck in these ruts and they feel like they can't get out. So what's the best way to get out of that rut?
I like it. Awesome. I'll be sure to ask that. Next person that we're interviewing is Linda. Linda.
Hey, Linda.
All right, awesome. And let's see. Boom, boom. I think that's pretty much it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Scott, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it all the time.
Very
it was
cool.
a lot of fun.
You'll have to send me the link, too, of course.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the link, tag you in it. And for those of you in the Brandon area, be sure, when you see this on the targeting, because I'm going to target you guys with ads, to come and check out Read More Comics.
115 East Brandon Boulevard, Suite A, just past Parsons Avenue, 4 miles east of I-75.
You heard the man. Give it a look.